The kid's hand was shaking so hard the ring almost slipped through his fingers. And every biker in that bar reached for something that could kill. And Tyler Brooks, 17 years old, starving, bruises fresh on his face, held out a skull ring worth more than his life to a man who had buried people for less. And Victor Thornton, president of the Hells Angels, felt his dead brother's ring touch his palm for the first time in 3 weeks. And his eyes locked on this homeless boy, and the room stopped breathing. And everything that came next would be paid for in blood. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story has traveled. Tyler Brooks pushed through the door of the Blackstone Saloon with nothing but desperation in his bones and a ring burning a hole in his pocket. And the moment he stepped inside, he knew he had made either the best decision of his life or the last one. And every head turned, every conversation stopped, every hand moved just a little closer to something that could hurt. And Tyler wanted to run. God, he wanted to run. But he had been running for 3 weeks straight, and his legs had nothing left. And his stomach had been empty for 2 days, and somewhere deep inside him, a voice that sounded like his grandmother said that running wasn't the same as living. So he stayed, and he walked toward the bar, feeling eyes on him like physical weight, feeling the judgment and the suspicion, and something else he couldn't name. And the bartender, a woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen everything twice, looked at him and said nothing, just waited, like she was giving him one chance to explain himself before the world came crashing down. "I found something," Tyler said, and his voice cracked on the second word. "I think it belongs to someone here." And he reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring, and the room went from quiet to silent. The kind of silent that happens before explosions. The kind of silent that happens when the universe holds its breath. And from the corner booth, a man stood up. Victor "Vex" Thornton was 53 years old, and every one of those years was written on his face. Scars that told stories, lines that mapped pain, eyes that had watched men die and hadn't looked away. And he walked toward Tyler slow and steady, his boots making the only sound in the entire bar. Each step deliberate, each step measured, each step bringing him closer to something he thought he'd lost forever. "Where did you get that?" Vex asked, and his voice was calm, but there was something underneath it that made Tyler's blood run cold. "I found it," Tyler said quickly, 3 weeks ago, near a gas station off Route 66. "I didn't steal it. I swear I didn't steal it. I found it in the dirt, and it felt wrong to keep it, and I've been carrying it around trying to figure out where it came from. And then I saw some guys with patches like yours at a truck stop, and they said if I wanted to return Hells Angels property, I should come here. And I know I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't keep it. I just couldn't." "Stop," Vex said, and Tyler stopped. And Vex reached out and took the ring from Tyler's trembling palm. And the moment his fingers touched the metal, something changed in his face. Something cracked, something surfaced that he had buried deep. "You walked in here," Vex said slowly, "into a Hells Angels bar, alone, to return a ring you found in the dirt." Tyler nodded, not trusting his voice. "Do you have any idea what this ring is?" Tyler shook his head. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Tyler shook his head again. And Vex stared at him for a long moment, and then he did something that shocked everyone in that bar, including himself. He laughed. Not a cruel laugh, not a mocking laugh, something else. Something that sounded almost like relief. "Rita," Vex said to the bartender without looking away from Tyler, "get this kid some food, and water, and whatever else he needs." And Rita moved without question, because when Vex spoke in that tone, you didn't ask why, you just did. And Tyler felt his legs start to give out, the adrenaline finally crashing, the fear finally catching up, and before he could stop himself, he was sitting on a bar stool with his head in his hands, trying not to cry, trying not to fall apart in front of people who looked like they could end him without breaking a sweat. And Vex sat down beside him, And he didn't say anything for a while. Just sat there. Just waited. Like he understood that sometimes silence was kinder than words. The food came, and Tyler ate like he hadn't eaten in days. Because he hadn't. A burger that tasted like heaven. Fries that tasted like salvation. Water that tasted like maybe the world wasn't completely done with him yet. And while he ate, Vex watched. And thought. And remembered. The ring was Danny's. Had been Danny's. Before it was Vex's. Before it was forged from the metal of a destroyed motorcycle on the worst night of Vex's life. And now here it was, returned by a kid who looked like life had chewed him up and spit him out. A kid who had no angle, no game, no idea what he had just walked into. And Vex felt something stir inside him. Something dangerous. Something that felt like hope. "What's your name?" Vex asked. "Tyler," the kid said between bites. "Tyler Brooks." "How old are you, Tyler?" 17. "Where are your parents?" And Tyler stopped eating. And the look that crossed his face was one Vex knew intimately. One Vex had worn himself decades ago, before the club, before the brotherhood, before he learned that family wasn't about blood. "My mom's dead," Tyler said quietly. 3 years now. My stepfather, he's not someone I can go back to." "Why not?" And Tyler looked up and his eyes were old. Too old for 17. Old in the way that only pain could make you. "Because if I go back, one of us is going to end up dead. And I don't want to kill anyone. I just want to be left alone." And Vex felt something tighten in his chest. Felt the past reach out and grab him by the throat. Because he had said those exact words once. 40 years ago, to a man in a bar not unlike this one. A man who had given him a chance when no one else would. And that man had become his brother. And that brother had died in his arms. And the ring in Vex's hand was all that remained of a promise made under desert stars. "The bruises on your face," Vex said. "Those from your stepfather?" Tyler nodded. "And the ones on your arms? Your ribs? The way you're sitting like breathing hurts?" Tyler's jaw tightened. He's thorough. And Vex made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change everything that came after. A decision that the man he used to be would have called stupid, and the man Danny had helped him become would have called necessary. "You're not going back," Vex said. Tyler looked at him, confusion cutting through the exhaustion. "What?" "You heard me. You're not going back. Not tonight. Not ever if I have anything to say about it." "But you don't even know me. I just walked in off the street. I could be anyone. I could be—" "You could be a lot of things," Vex interrupted. "But you're not. You're a kid who found something valuable and chose to return it instead of sell it. You're a kid who walked into a lion's den with nothing but honesty and a ring you didn't understand. You know what that tells me?" Tyler shook his head. "It tells me that someone, somewhere along the way, taught you that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, even when nobody's watching." And Tyler felt something crack inside him, something he had been holding together with willpower and desperation for 3 long years. "My grandmother," he whispered, "she raised me until I was 14. Before my mom, before everything. She sounds like a good woman. She was the best woman. She used to say that character was what you did when no one could see you, that integrity was its own reward, that the measure of a man wasn't what he had, but what he gave." And Vex nodded slowly. "Smart lady." "She died too," Tyler said, and his voice broke on the words. "Everyone I've ever loved has died, and I don't know why I'm still here, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I just wanted to give back something that didn't belong to me. That's all. That's all I wanted." And Vex reached out and put a hand on Tyler's shoulder. And the touch was firm but gentle, grounding, real. "You did good, kid. You did real good. And whatever happens next, I want you to remember that. You walked into the hardest room you could have walked into, and you did the right thing anyway. That takes guts. That takes something most people never find. And Tyler looked at this man, this stranger with scars and hard eyes, and a ring that meant something neither of them could fully explain. And he felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt seen. The door to the bar burst open, and 4 men walked in wearing leather cuts that matched Vex's. And Tyler instinctively moved closer to Vex, his body going rigid, his survival instincts screaming that more dangerous people meant more danger. But Vex didn't tense, didn't move, just turned and nodded at the newcomers like this was exactly what he expected. "About time," Vex said. "I was starting to think you all got lost." The first man through the door was built like a tank, shoulders that could block doorways, hands that looked like they could crush skulls, a face that said he had done both. "Traffic," the man said, his voice a rumble of distant thunder, "and some cop was tailing us for 3 miles before he got a better call. Hammer, this is Tyler. Tyler, this is Axel Briggs. We call him Hammer for reasons I'm sure you can figure out." Hammer looked at Tyler, and Tyler felt like he was being x-rayed, like every secret he had was being read and cataloged. "This the kid who found your ring?" Hammer asked. "This is the kid who returned my ring. There's a difference." Hammer grunted, something that might have been approval. Hard to tell. The second man was leaner, with gray streaking through his dark hair and eyes that seemed to be calculating something constantly. He moved like a chess player, deliberate and precise. "Dean Malone," Vex said. "We call him Preacher. He used to be one, if you can believe it." "I find believing in things is more useful than doubting them," Preacher said, and his voice was surprisingly gentle. "Welcome to the Blackstone, Tyler. You look like you've had a hard road." "He has," Vex said before Tyler could answer. "And it's about to get harder. Hammer, what's the situation outside?" Hammer's face darkened. 2 cruisers parked a quarter-mile down. Sheriff Cole's boys. They'd been there since sundown. And Tyler felt something cold slide down his spine, because he had learned to recognize that name, had heard it whispered at truck stops and shelters and places where people who didn't want to be found went to hide. Sheriff Marcus Cole, the man who owned the desert, the man who made people disappear, the man Tyler had been running from without even knowing it. "Why are they here?" Tyler asked, and his voice came out smaller than he wanted. Vex looked at him, and for the first time, there was something hard in his expression, something dangerous, something that reminded Tyler that this man, whatever kindness he had shown, was not someone to underestimate. "They're here," Vex said slowly, "because 3 weeks ago, Sheriff Cole's men ambushed me on Highway 66, left me bleeding in a ditch, took my ring as a trophy, and I've been looking for it ever since." And Tyler felt the world tilt. "The ring I found was taken from me during a fight with Cole's deputies, a fight that wasn't supposed to have witnesses, a fight that could put Cole away for the rest of his miserable life if anyone ever found out what really happened. And I picked it up. I was there. You were there, sleeping behind a dumpster from what you told me, which means you might have seen something, which means you might know something, which means as far as Cole is concerned, you're a loose end that needs to be tied off." And the third man through the door, a woman with close-cropped hair and steady hands, spoke up. "He's got bruising consistent with long-term abuse, malnourishment, dehydration. This kid's been through hell, Vex. Whatever we're about to do, we need to do it knowing that." "Cassie Warren," Vex said. "Our medic. She goes by Stitch. And she's right, we need to handle this carefully." And the fourth man hadn't said anything at all. He stood near the window, watching the street, and Tyler hadn't even noticed him move there, like a shadow, like something that existed only in peripheral vision. "Leo Vance," Vex said. "We call him Shadow. And if he's watching the window, it means something out there is worth watching." "2 more cars," Shadow said quietly, "unmarked, just pulled in across the street." And Vex stood up slowly, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command, the weight of a man who had led other men through fire and expected to do it again. This is the situation. We have a kid who did the right thing and walked into the wrong place at the wrong time. We have a sheriff who wants him gone because he's evidence of a crime. And we have a choice to make. What choice? Hammer asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Whether we let Cole take him, or whether we remind him that the Hells Angels don't abandon people who do the right thing. And the room went quiet. And Tyler looked at these strangers, these dangerous people who owed him nothing. And he waited for them to make the calculation he had seen adults make his whole life. The calculation that said he wasn't worth the trouble. That said cutting losses was smarter than taking risks. That said looking out for yourself was the only thing that made sense. But Hammer just cracked his knuckles and said, "I didn't ride 40 miles to hand a kid over to a dirty cop." And Preacher nodded slowly. The Lord protects the innocent. Sometimes he just uses unusual methods. And Stitch was already pulling supplies from her bag. "I'm going to need to check those ribs. And when's the last time you slept properly?" And Shadow said nothing at all, but he moved from the window to a position near the back door. And something about that movement said everything that needed to be said. And Vex turned to Tyler, and his expression had changed. Something firm in it now, something decided. "You walked in here alone. You're not leaving that way. Whatever happens next, you need to understand something. You're under our protection now. That's not a small thing. That's not a temporary thing. That's a promise made in leather and blood. And we don't break our promises. Ever." And Tyler felt tears he had been holding back for years finally start to fall. "Why?" he managed. "You don't even know me. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I'm just—" "You're not nobody," Vex said firmly. "You're the kid who returned something that didn't belong to you. You're the kid who walked into danger because it felt wrong to do anything else. You're the kid who reminded an old biker that honor still exists in this broken world. And that makes you someone worth fighting for." And Tyler couldn't speak, could barely breathe, because nobody had ever said anything like that to him. Nobody had ever looked at him and seen something worth fighting for. And Vex put his hand on Tyler's shoulder again, and this time the touch felt different. It felt like an anchor, like something solid in a world that had been nothing but quicksand. "You're not alone anymore, Tyler. I know that probably doesn't mean much coming from a stranger, but I'm telling you, here and now, that I'm not going to let Cole or anyone else hurt you. And that's not just a promise, that's an oath. And I've never broken an oath in my life." Sheriff Marcus Cole stood beside his cruiser, watching the Blackstone Saloon from a distance that felt both safe and insufficient. And he didn't like what he was seeing. The kid had gone in 30 minutes ago. A runaway, a nobody, a loose thread from a night Cole thought he had handled perfectly. And now the entire Arizona chapter of the Hells Angels was gathering, bikes rolling in one by one, men and women with patches that represented decades of defiance, a force that had never bent to his authority, no matter how hard he pushed. And Cole felt something he rarely felt: uncertainty. His deputy, a younger man named Richards, stood beside him, hand resting on his weapon like that would matter if things went bad. "What's the play, boss?" Richards asked. And Cole considered the question, considered his options, considered the careful balance he had maintained for 15 years, the pipeline that moved through the desert, the people who disappeared and were never mentioned again, the empire he had built on silence and fear. And he said, "We wait, we watch, and if that kid comes out alone, we take him, quietly, legally if we can, less legally if we have to. And if he doesn't come out alone," Cole's jaw tightened, "then we find another way. The Angels think they're untouchable. They think their patches mean something. But I've been running this county since before Thornton got out of prison. I've survived federal investigations, rival gangs, and 3 different governors who wanted my badge. I'll survive this too." But even as he said it, something nagged at him. Something about the way this night was unfolding. Something about a homeless kid finding a ring that should have been at the bottom of a river, and choosing to return it instead of pawn it. Because in Cole's experience, people didn't do the right thing. People did the selfish thing, the smart thing, the thing that benefited them and hurt everyone else. And a kid who walked into a Hell's Angels bar with nothing but honesty was either the bravest person Cole had ever seen or the stupidest. Or something else, something Cole couldn't quite name. And that uncertainty was worse than anything else. Back inside the bar, the discussion had shifted from what to something harder. How? We can't just keep him here indefinitely, Hammer said. Cole's got resources. He's got the system. He can wait us out, make up charges, turn this into a siege that destroys us legally, even if he can't touch us physically. So we don't play defense, Preacher said. We play offense. Cole's dirty. We all know it. Half the county knows it. If we can prove it, proving it and surviving long enough to use the proof are two different things, Stitch interrupted. I've seen what happens to witnesses in this county. They have accidents. They disappear. They stop being problems. And Tyler listened to all of it, understanding slowly dawning. This isn't just about me, he said quietly. This is about something bigger, something you've been fighting for a long time. And Vex looked at him, and there was something like respect in his eyes. Smart kid. Yeah, this is bigger than you. Cole's been running a trafficking operation through the desert for years. People who won't be missed. Runaways. Undocumented workers. Anyone vulnerable. And we've been trying to stop him, but he's got protection. He's got connections. He's got a system that's been designed to look the other way. And the night you were ambushed? I was following a lead, trying to get evidence. His men caught me before I could find what I was looking for. Took the ring as a message. Left me to bleed out. Would have died if Hammer hadn't come looking when I missed check-in. And Tyler felt something shift inside him. Something that had been passive becoming active. Something that had been survival becoming purpose. The ring, Tyler said slowly. When I found it, there was other stuff nearby. Papers, a phone. It was smashed, but it was there. I didn't think anything of it, but I remember where it was, where I was sleeping. I could show you. And the room went very quiet. And Vex leaned forward, something sharp in his expression now. You remember exactly where? I have a good memory for places. Had to, moving around so much. Yeah, I remember, about 2 miles off Route 66, near that old gas station with the faded dinosaur sign. Behind the dumpsters where I was sleeping. There was a drainage ditch, and the stuff was scattered there, like someone threw it and didn't look back. And Hammer and Preacher exchanged a glance. That's where we found Vex, Hammer said quietly. He managed to crawl half a mile before passing out. If the phone's still there, Shadow said from his position by the door, it could have everything. Contacts, messages, evidence Cole thought he destroyed. And Vex stood up, and there was fire in his eyes now, a purpose that had been waiting for fuel. Then we go get it. Tonight, before Cole figures out what we're doing. That's suicide, Stitch said. Cole's got men everywhere. The moment we leave this bar. Not all of us, Vex said. Just me and the kid. Everyone else stays here, keeps Cole's attention. Makes him think we're planning something. By the time he realizes we're gone, we'll already be back with whatever's left in that ditch. And if it's nothing? Hammer asked. If the phone's destroyed beyond recovery? If the papers are gone? And Vex looked at Tyler, and something passed between them. Something that didn't need words. Then we'll know, Vex said. And knowing is better than guessing. It's always better than guessing. Tyler's heart was pounding as he climbed onto the back of Vex's motorcycle. A machine that rumbled beneath him like a living thing. A machine that represented everything he had been taught to fear, and everything he was starting to understand was more complicated than fear. Hold on tight, Vex said over his shoulder. And if I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back. Don't hesitate. Just go. Where would I go? Anywhere but back to Cole. You run until you can't run anymore, and then you keep running. You survive. That's the only thing that matters. And Tyler wanted to argue, wanted to say that survival wasn't the only thing that mattered. But the engine roared to life, and they were moving, slipping through the back lot, through a gap in the fence that seemed designed for exactly this purpose, onto a dirt road that led away from the main street. And as they rode into the darkness, Tyler looked back at the bar growing smaller behind them, at the people who had chosen to protect him, at a future he couldn't have imagined 4 hours ago. And he held on tighter, and prayed to a God he wasn't sure existed that they would make it back. The gas station was exactly as Tyler remembered, abandoned, faded, a relic of a time when this road had meant something. And the dinosaur sign creaked in the wind, its paint peeling, its eyes staring at nothing. And Vex killed the engine, and the silence that followed was almost worse than the roar that preceded it. "Show me," Vex said simply, and Tyler led him around the back, past the dumpsters that still smelled like rot and forgotten things, to the drainage ditch where he had spent 3 nights listening to the desert and trying not to think about everything he had lost. And he pointed. "There. That's where I found the ring. It was half buried in the dirt. And the other stuff, the papers, the phone, it was scattered over there, near those rocks." And Vex pulled out a flashlight, and the beam cut through the darkness, revealing exactly what Tyler had described. Papers, weathered but still there, protected by the rocks from the worst of the wind. And a phone. Smashed, yes, screen cracked, body dented, but intact enough that maybe, just maybe, someone who knew what they were doing could pull something from it. And Vex knelt down, and his hands were shaking as he gathered everything, as he placed the papers in an inside pocket, as he wrapped the phone in a bandana and secured it carefully. "This is it," Vex whispered. "This is everything I was looking for that night, everything Cole tried to destroy, everything that could end him." And Tyler felt something strange, something like pride, something like purpose. "Will it be enough?" he asked. And Vex looked at him, and for the first time his expression wasn't guarded. It was open, grateful, real. "I don't know," Vex admitted, "but it's more than we had this morning. And sometimes that's all you need. One piece of evidence, one thread to pull, one chance to do what should have been done years ago." And they turned to head back to the motorcycle, and froze, because standing between them and escape, flashlights cutting through the darkness, guns drawn and ready, were 4 of Sheriff Cole's deputies. And behind them, walking forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, was Cole himself. "Well, well," Cole said, his voice carrying across the distance with terrible clarity. "Looks like I was right. The kid wasn't just returning a ring, he was returning to the scene of the crime." And Vex stepped in front of Tyler, shielding him with his body, his hand moving toward his vest. "Don't," Cole said sharply. "Whatever you're reaching for, don't. My men are very good shots, and I really don't want to explain to anyone why a Hell's Angel got killed resisting arrest. Too much paperwork." And Vex stopped. But he didn't move away from Tyler, didn't give an inch. "The boy has nothing to do with this," Vex said. "He's just a kid, a runaway. He doesn't know anything." "See, that's where you're wrong," Cole said, stepping closer, his boots crunching on gravel. "That kid knows where you were that night. He knows where the evidence was. He knows enough to ask questions that people might want answered. And in my experience, witnesses have a way of becoming problems, unless they're handled properly." And Tyler felt fear like ice water in his veins, felt the certainty of death settling over him like a shroud. But he also felt something else, anger. Anger at all the adults who had failed him, all the systems that had abandoned him, all the people who had looked at him and seen nothing worth saving. And he stepped out from behind Vex. "Tyler, don't," Vex started, but Tyler was already talking, his voice steadier than he expected. "I know who you are," Tyler said to Cole. "I know what you do. I've heard people talk about you at shelters and truck stops and places where nobody's supposed to hear anything. They talk about disappearances, about bodies in the desert, about a sheriff who thinks his badge makes him God. And Cole's smile flickered, just for a second, but Tyler saw it. Brave words from a dead kid walking, Cole said. Maybe, but here's the thing. I've been dead walking my whole life. My mom died. My grandmother died. My stepfather tried to kill me more times than I can count. You think I'm scared of you? You think death means anything to me anymore? And Tyler took another step forward, and he could see Cole's men getting nervous, could see their fingers tightening on triggers. But here's what I do know. Whatever you're trying to hide, whatever was on that phone, whatever was in those papers, it's going to come out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Because the truth has a way of surviving. My grandmother taught me that. The truth outlasts everything. And for a long moment, nobody moved. And then Cole laughed. Your grandmother sounds like she was a fool, Cole said. And you're about to find out exactly how little truth matters when you're the one holding the gun. And he raised his weapon. And Vex moved. Not toward Cole, not toward the deputies, toward Tyler, pushing him down, covering him with his body, becoming a shield of flesh and leather and something that looked a lot like love. And Tyler heard the shot, felt Vex's body jerk, heard the motorcycle engines roaring in from somewhere close, and everything went sideways. The Hells Angels came out of the darkness like vengeance given form. Hammer's bike leading, his massive frame silhouetted against headlights. Preacher behind him, Stitch, Shadow, and others Tyler didn't recognize. And Cole's men scattered, because 4 deputies against a dozen bikers wasn't a fight. It was a massacre waiting to happen. And Cole himself was backing toward his cruiser, his confident smile finally cracking, his certainty finally breaking. "This isn't over, Thornton," Cole shouted. "You hear me? This isn't even close to over." And Vex, bleeding from his shoulder but still standing, still shielding Tyler with his body, shouted back, "You're right, Cole. It isn't over. But when it ends, you're going to remember this night. You're going to remember the kid you tried to kill, and you're going to wish you had just let him return that ring and walk away." And Cole got in his cruiser and drove into the darkness, and the night swallowed him whole. Stitch was working on Vex's shoulder before he could argue, her hands steady, her voice calm. "Through and through," she said. "Missed anything important, you're lucky." "Lucky is relative," Vex grunted. And Tyler stood there, shaking, watching this man who had taken a bullet for him, who had put his body between danger and a stranger, who had kept a promise made less than an hour ago. You saved me," Tyler said, and his voice sounded young even to his own ears. "You actually saved me." And Vex looked at him, pain in his eyes, but something else too, something warm. "That's what family does, kid. They save each other, even when it hurts, even when it costs everything. That's what makes it family." And Tyler felt something break open inside him, and for the first time in 3 years, he let himself cry, really cry, and nobody told him to stop. And Vex just put his good arm around him and held on. And the desert wind blew around them, carrying dust and fate, and the beginning of something that would change everything. The ride back to the clubhouse felt longer than it should have. Tyler sat behind Hammer now, his arms wrapped tight around the massive man's waist, his mind still replaying the sound of that gunshot, still feeling the impact as Vex's body had slammed into his, still seeing the blood spreading across leather. And when they finally rolled through the gates, when the engines died and the silence rushed in, Tyler couldn't make his legs move, couldn't make anything work right. Hammer turned and looked at him, and there was something in those hard eyes that Tyler hadn't expected, something like understanding. "First time someone takes a bullet for you," Hammer said quietly, "it changes something inside, makes you realize you matter to somebody. That's a heavy thing to carry when you've been carrying nothing but yourself." Tyler nodded, not trusting his voice. "Come on, kid, let's get inside. Stitch needs to work on Vex proper, and you need to eat something before you fall over. And Tyler followed because following was easier than thinking, and thinking was too dangerous right now. Inside the clubhouse, chaos had transformed into controlled urgency. Vex was on a table, shirt cut away, Stitch working on his shoulder with the kind of focus that came from years of practice. And the other members were gathered around, not hovering, not interfering, just present, bearing witness. "How bad?" Preacher asked, his voice tight. "He'll live," Stitch said without looking up. "Bullet went clean through, missed the bone, missed the artery. Another inch to the left and we'd be having a different conversation." "I've had worse," Vex grunted through clenched teeth. "You've had stupider," Stitch shot back. "Standing in front of a drawn weapon? What were you thinking?" "I was thinking there was a kid behind me who didn't deserve to die," and the room went quiet. And Tyler felt every eye turn toward him, felt the weight of that statement settle on his shoulders like something physical. "The evidence," Shadow said, breaking the silence. "Did we get it?" Vex managed a nod toward his cut, which lay on a nearby chair. "Inside pocket, papers and a phone. Phone's damaged, but maybe someone can pull something from it." Shadow moved to retrieve it, handling the items like they were made of glass and dynamite. "I know a guy, tech specialist, owes me 3 favors and counting. If there's anything left on this phone, he'll find it." "Do it," Vex said. "Tonight, before Cole has time to regroup." "Vex, you just got shot," Stitch protested. "And I'll get shot again if we don't move fast. Cole's scared now. Scared men make mistakes, but they also get desperate. We need to hit him before he hits us." Tyler stepped forward, his voice coming out stronger than he expected. "What can I do?" Every head turned again. "You've done enough, kid," Hammer said, not unkindly. "You found the evidence. You stood up to Cole. That's more than most people do in a lifetime." "But I want to help. This is my fight too now. He tried to kill me. He shot Vex because of me. I can't just sit here and wait for someone else to fix it." And Vex, despite the pain, despite Stitch's protests, pushed himself up on one elbow and looked at Tyler with something that might have been pride. "You want to help? Then help. But you do exactly what we tell you, when we tell you. No heroics, no solo moves. This isn't a game, and Cole isn't going to give you a second chance." "I understand." "Do you?" Because understanding and knowing are different things. You can understand that fire burns, but you don't really know it until you've been burned. "I've been burned," Tyler said quietly. "My whole life has been one long burn. I'm not afraid of more." And something passed between them, a recognition, a kinship that went deeper than words. "All right," Vex said finally. "You're in. God help us all." The next few hours moved fast and slow at the same time. Shadow disappeared into the night with the phone and papers. Stitch finished patching Vex, then turned her attention to Tyler's older injuries, tutting over bruises that had bruises of their own. Hammer coordinated security, posting members at every entrance, every window, every vulnerable point. And Preacher sat with Tyler in a corner, talking quietly about nothing and everything, about roads that led nowhere and roads that led home, about faith that died and faith that was reborn in unexpected places. "You believe in God?" Tyler asked at one point. Preacher considered the question. "I believe in something. I used to have a name for it, used to have rituals and rules and a whole structure built around it. But then life happened, and the structure fell apart, and all I was left with was the something. The feeling that there's more to this than just survival. That we're here for a reason, even if we never figure out what it is." My grandmother believed, really believed. She used to say that God was watching out for me even when I couldn't see it. Maybe she was right. Maybe God wears a leather cut and rides a Harley these days. And Tyler almost laughed. Almost. The sound caught in his throat, unfamiliar and strange, like a language he had forgotten how to speak. "When did you leave the church?" Tyler asked. "When I realized the church had left me. Left all of us. When I saw what men did in God's name and couldn't reconcile it with anything holy. But that's the thing about faith, kid. It doesn't need a building. It doesn't need a book. It just needs someone willing to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. And you believe that? I have to. The alternative is too dark to live in. The first call came at 3 in the morning, Shadow's voice, tense and excited. We got it. We got everything. Vex was on his feet before Stitch could stop him, crossing to the phone with his good arm pressed against his side. Talk to me. The phone's a gold mine. Text between Cole and his people, coordinates of drop points, names of buyers, and recordings, audio recordings of Cole himself discussing shipments, discussing payments, discussing what happens to the merchandise that doesn't cooperate. And Tyler felt his stomach turn because he knew what merchandise meant, knew that he could have been one of those entries in a ledger, one of those problems that got solved. Is it enough? Vex asked. It's more than enough. This takes Cole down. This takes everyone connected to Cole down. We're talking federal charges, RICO, human trafficking, conspiracy. This isn't a local scandal, Vex. This is national news. Then we need to move. Who do we give it to? Feds? Media? Both? I've got a contact at the FBI field office in Phoenix, someone I've worked with before, someone clean. But we need to get the evidence to them before Cole figures out what we have. How long? I can be back by dawn. We make the handoff tomorrow morning, somewhere public, somewhere Cole can't touch us. Do it. And Shadow, watch your back. Cole's got eyes everywhere. His eyes haven't found me yet. They won't start tonight. The line went dead, and Vex turned to face the room. Every member was awake now, gathered, waiting. We've got 24 hours, Vex said, maybe less. Once we hand this evidence over, Cole is done. But between now and then, he's going to throw everything he has at us. Everything. If anyone wants out, now's the time. No judgment, no shame. This isn't your fight. Nobody moved. It became our fight the moment you took that bullet, Hammer said. We're not going anywhere. And Tyler looked at these people. These strangers who had become something else in the space of a single night, and he felt something he couldn't name, something warm, something real. The attack came just before dawn, not with guns, not with deputies, but with something worse, fire. The first Molotov cocktail crashed through the window at 5:47 a.m., turning the common room into an inferno in seconds. The second followed a heartbeat later, hitting the front door, trapping the flames inside. Tyler woke to screaming, to chaos, to Hammer grabbing him by the collar and dragging him toward the back of the building, while Bex shouted orders, and Stitch grabbed whatever medical supplies she could carry. Move! Everyone move! Back exit, now! And Tyler ran, his lungs filling with smoke, his eyes burning, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. And all around him, the clubhouse was dying, years of history turning to ash and ember. They made it out, all of them, tumbling into the pre-dawn darkness, coughing and gasping and counting heads. Everyone here, Vex demanded, his voice raw. Sound off. Names called out, present, alive, shaken but whole. And Vex stood there, watching his clubhouse burn, watching everything he had built turn to cinders. And Tyler expected rage, expected fury, expected something explosive. But Vex just looked tired and determined, and something else that Tyler was beginning to recognize as resolve. Cole thinks this ends us, Vex said quietly. He thinks taking our building takes our strength. But he's wrong. He's always been wrong. We're not the building. We're not the patches. We're not the bikes. We're the people who wear them. And people don't burn as easy as wood. Where do we go? Tyler asked, because it was the only question that mattered. Somewhere Cole won't think to look. Somewhere we can regroup and wait for Shadow. Hammer stepped forward. I know a place, old ranch about 20 miles out. Belongs to a friend who doesn't ask questions. It's not pretty, but it's got walls and it's got space, and Cole doesn't know it exists. Then that's where we go. And they moved, bikes roaring to life, heading into a sunrise that painted the desert in shades of red and gold, leaving behind everything they had known, carrying with them only what they were. The ranch was exactly as Hammer described: isolated, basic, safe. And as the morning stretched into midday, Tyler found himself standing alone at the edge of the property, looking out at nothing, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. A ring, a bar, a bullet, a fire, and people who had chosen to protect him when they had every reason not to. "You're thinking too loud." Tyler turned to find Stitch approaching, 2 bottles of water in her hands. She handed him one and leaned against the fence beside him. "How do you do it?" Tyler asked. "Do what?" "Stay calm. Through all of this, the shooting, the fire, running for your life, you act like it's just another Tuesday." Stitch was quiet for a moment. "It is another Tuesday. Maybe not for you, not yet, but when you've been in this life long enough, you learn that chaos is normal. Peace is the exception. You don't stay calm because you're not afraid. You stay calm because being afraid doesn't help anyone." "Were you always like this?" "God, no. I was a mess when I first came to the club. Running from a marriage that nearly killed me. Scared of my own shadow. Vex found me at a gas station at 2 in the morning, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a coffee and said if I needed somewhere safe, he knew a place." "And you stayed." "I stayed, learned medicine because the club needed a medic, found a purpose because having a purpose was better than drowning, made a family because my blood family wasn't worth the name." "Does it ever stop feeling strange, having people care about you?" And Stitch looked at him, really looked, and her expression softened in a way that made her seem younger. "Sometimes, on good days. But then something happens and you remember that you spent years believing you were worthless, and the feeling comes back. The trick is recognizing it for what it is: a lie, a leftover from a life that doesn't exist anymore." "How do you know the difference between the lie and the truth?" "You look at the evidence, at the people standing beside you, at the man who took a bullet rather than let you get hurt. That's not a lie, Tyler. That's as real as it gets." Tyler let that sink in, let it settle somewhere deep. "Stitch, thank you for everything." "Don't thank me yet. We've still got to survive the day." The call came at 2 in the afternoon, Shadow's voice strained and urgent. "We've got a problem." Vex grabbed the phone. "What happened?" "Cole's men. They found my contact. Beat him within an inch of his life. He's in the hospital. The FBI handoff is blown." "The evidence?" "Still safe. I've got it. But Cole knows we have it now. He knows what's on that phone. And he's not going to stop until he gets it back or destroys everyone who's seen it. Get here. Fast. We'll figure out another way." "There's more. Cole's put out a warrant for Tyler. Says he's a runaway involved in arson and assault. Says anyone harboring him is facing federal charges." And Tyler felt the world tilt again, felt the walls closing in. "He's lying," Tyler said, loud enough for Shadow to hear. "I didn't do anything. He's making it up." "Of course he is," Vex said grimly, "but that doesn't matter. What matters is that every cop in the state is now looking for you. Every trucker, every civilian with a radio. Cole just turned you into the most wanted kid in Arizona. What do we do?" Vex was silent for a moment, thinking, calculating. "We stop running. We stop hiding. We take this straight to someone Cole can't touch. Someone with enough power to override his warrants and enough integrity to actually look at the evidence." "Who?" "Governor Martinez. She's been trying to clean up the state for years. If we can get to her, show her what we have, she can make this go away. Make Cole go away." "The governor? How do we get to the governor?" And Vex smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had one card left and was about to play it. I saved her son's life 15 years ago, got him out of a situation that would have destroyed her career if it went public. She owes me, and I've never collected, until now. The plan came together piece by piece. Vex would make contact with the governor's office. Shadow would bring the evidence. Tyler would stay hidden at the ranch until everything was in place. But plans, as Tyler was learning, rarely survived contact with reality. The deputies arrived at 4 o'clock. 3 cruisers, 12 men, and Sheriff Cole himself, stepping out of the lead vehicle with a warrant in his hand and a smile on his face. "Victor Thornton," Cole's voice carried across the distance. "I know you're in there, and I know you've got my property. Come out now, and maybe I'll let some of your people walk away from this." Tyler watched from a window, his heart hammering, saw Vex step onto the porch, wounded arm in a sling, his face carved from stone. "You're on private property, Cole. Your warrant doesn't mean anything here." "My warrant means whatever I say it means. You've got a fugitive in there, a runaway accused of multiple felonies. Hand him over, and we can settle the rest like civilized people." "Civilized? You burned my clubhouse. You tried to murder a child. You run a trafficking operation that's destroyed hundreds of lives. Don't talk to me about civilized." Cole's smile flickered but held. "Prove it. You can't. All you've got is accusations and conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, I've got badges, I've got authority, and I've got enough firepower to level this place if you give me a reason." "Then we're at an impasse, because that kid isn't going anywhere with you. Not today, not ever." And the standoff stretched, seconds becoming minutes, Tyler watching, waiting, knowing that something had to break. Cole moved first, a hand signal, his deputies beginning to fan out, surrounding the ranch, cutting off escape routes. And Vex didn't flinch, didn't move, just stood there like a monument to defiance. "Last chance, Thornton. Hand him over, or I'm coming in to get him." "Then come. But understand something, Cole. The evidence you're so afraid of, it's not here. It's already on its way to someone who's going to bury you with it. You can kill everyone in this building, and it won't change what's coming. You're done. You just don't know it yet." And Tyler saw it. The moment Cole's certainty cracked, the moment doubt crept in. "You're bluffing." "Am I? You know me, Cole. You've known me for 20 years. Have I ever bluffed about anything that mattered?" And the silence stretched. And Cole made a decision that surprised everyone. He lowered his hand, signaled his men to stand down. "This isn't over," Cole said, and his voice had lost its confidence, not by a long shot. "No," Vex agreed, "it isn't. But when it is, you're going to remember this moment. The moment you could have walked away and didn't." And Cole got back in his cruiser, and the deputies followed, and the dust swirled as they drove away, and Tyler finally remembered to breathe. Inside, the relief was palpable but controlled. Nobody celebrated, nobody relaxed. "That bought us time," Vex said. "Not much, hours maybe. We need to move." "Move where?" Tyler asked. "Phoenix, the governor's mansion. Shadow's meeting us there with the evidence. We're ending this tonight." "All of us?" "All of us. Cole's going to come back with everything he's got. If we're scattered, he picks us off one by one. Together, we've got a chance." And so they rode. 15 bikes, 15 people, one teenager on the back of a president's motorcycle, heading toward a confrontation that would determine everything. And as the desert blurred past, Tyler felt something strange settling over him. Not fear, not hope, something in between, something that felt like acceptance. Whatever happened next, he was part of something bigger than himself, part of a brotherhood that chose him, part of a fight that mattered. And for the first time in his 17 years, Tyler Brooks wasn't running from his life. He was riding toward it. The convoy reached the outskirts of Phoenix just as the sun began to set, and Shadow was waiting at a truck stop, evidence in hand, his face grim. "We've got another problem," Shadow said as they gathered around. "When don't we?" Hammer muttered. The governors agreed to meet, but Cole's already there. He got to her first, fed her some story about domestic terrorism and biker gangs threatening public safety. She's skeptical, but she's also cautious. She wants to see the evidence before she commits to anything. "Then we show her," Vex said. "That's the problem. Cole's got men around the mansion. Not officially, private security, probably paid off. We try to walk in the front door, we won't make it past the gate." And Tyler stepped forward, an idea forming that terrified him even as he spoke it. "What if I go alone?" Every head turned. "Absolutely not," Vex said immediately. "Hear me out. Cole wants me. That's what this is all about, right? I'm the witness. I'm the evidence. If I walk up to that mansion alone, Cole's men aren't going to shoot me. They can't. Too many cameras, too many witnesses. They'll have to let me in. And then what? And then I tell the governor everything, face to face. One kid telling the truth to someone who can actually do something about it. No club, no colors, just me and my story." "It's suicide," Stitch said. "It's the only way. You know it is." And Vex looked at Tyler for a long moment. Looked at this kid who had walked into a bar with nothing but a ring and had somehow become the center of everything. "You sure about this?" Vex asked quietly. "Once you walk in there, we can't protect you. We can only watch." "I've never been sure about anything in my life, but my grandmother used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else is more important than fear. And right now, stopping Cole is more important than anything." And Vex nodded slowly, reached into his pocket, pulled out the ring. "Take this," he said. "What? No, that's yours. That's Danny's. And now it's yours. For luck, for courage, for whatever you need it to be. You bring it back to me when this is over." And Tyler took the ring, slipped it onto his finger, felt its weight like a promise. "I'll bring it back. I know you will." And Tyler turned and walked toward the mansion, alone, into the dying light, into whatever came next. Tyler's footsteps felt like thunder in his own ears as he approached the mansion gates. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to run, to disappear into the desert the way he had disappeared from everything else in his life. But the ring on his finger felt warm, felt heavy, felt like a promise he couldn't break. And he kept walking. Two men in dark suits stepped forward as he reached the gate. Not police, not deputies. Private security with earpieces and cold eyes and hands that hovered near concealed weapons. "Stop right there," the first one said. "This is private property." "I need to see Governor Martinez," Tyler said, and he was proud that his voice didn't shake. "My name is Tyler Brooks. She's expecting me." The guards exchanged glances. One of them spoke into his earpiece, too quietly for Tyler to hear. And then the second guard's expression changed. Recognition, calculation, something that looked almost like hunger. "Tyler Brooks," the guard repeated slowly. "The runaway, the one Sheriff Cole's been looking for. The one who has evidence that Sheriff Cole is a murderer and a trafficker. The one who's going to make sure the governor sees that evidence before Cole can bury it." And Tyler felt the shift, felt the moment when these men realized he wasn't just a scared kid anymore. He was a threat, a loose end, a problem that needed solving. "I don't think you understand the situation," the first guard said, stepping closer. "Sheriff Cole is already inside. He's already told the governor everything she needs to know. You walking in there isn't going to change anything except the length of your sentence." "Then let me walk in. If I'm so harmless, what's the risk?" And the guards hesitated. Because Tyler was right, because there were cameras on the gate, because whatever they were being paid to do, doing it in full view of security footage was a different kind of stupid. The earpiece crackled again, and the first guard's jaw tightened. "Let him through," he said finally. "The sheriff wants to talk to him personally." And the gates swung open. and Tyler walked into the lion's den. The inside of the mansion was everything Tyler had never experienced. Wealth, power, the kind of comfort that came from never having to worry about where your next meal was coming from. And standing in the center of the foyer, like he owned the place, was Sheriff Marcus Cole. "Well, well," Cole said, and his voice was smooth as oil and twice as slick. "The prodigal runaway returns. I have to admit, I didn't think you had the guts to show up here alone. I'm full of surprises." "That you are, that you are." Cole circled slowly, studying Tyler the way a predator studied prey. "You know, in another life, I might have actually admired you. The way you've survived, the way you fought. It's impressive for a kid with nothing." "I'm not here for your admiration. I'm here to see the governor." "The governor is busy. Important people have important schedules. But don't worry, I'll make sure she gets your message. Eventually." And Tyler felt the trap closing, felt the walls narrowing, felt everything he had hoped for slipping away. But then a door opened, and a woman walked out. Governor Elena Martinez was 62 years old, but she carried herself like someone who had stopped counting decades ago. Sharp eyes, silver hair pulled back tight, a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. "Sheriff Cole," she said, and her voice was cold. "I thought I made it clear that I would be conducting this interview myself. Governor, this boy is a wanted fugitive, a runaway with a history of violence and instability. Whatever he's told you, he hasn't told me anything yet, because you've been blocking him since he walked through the door. Step aside." And Cole's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Anger, calculation, something that looked almost like fear. "Governor, I really must insist." "You can insist all you want, Marcus, but this is my house, and that is my guest, and you're going to step aside now, or I'm going to have my actual security escort you to the curb. Your choice." And Cole stepped aside, and Tyler felt something flutter in his chest, something that might have been hope. "Come with me," Governor Martinez said, turning toward her office. "We have a lot to discuss." The office was quieter than the foyer, more private, more intimate, and somehow that made it more terrifying. Governor Martinez sat behind her desk and gestured for Tyler to take the chair across from her. Cole tried to follow, but she held up a hand. "Alone, Marcus." "Governor, alone. That's not a request." And Cole's jaw clenched so tight Tyler could hear his teeth grinding. But he left, and the door closed behind him, and Tyler was alone with the most powerful person in Arizona. "So," Governor Martinez said, leaning back in her chair, "you're the boy Victor Thornton called me about, the one who found the ring." "Yes, ma'am. He saved my son's life, 20 years ago. My boy was in with some bad people, made some terrible choices, and Victor got him out before it destroyed us both. I've owed him ever since, never thought he'd collect. He didn't want to, but Cole didn't give him a choice. Tell me what happened, everything, from the beginning." And Tyler told her. He told her about the ring, about the bar, about Vex taking a bullet for him, about the fire, about the evidence, about everything Cole had done and everything Cole had tried to hide. And Governor Martinez listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. When Tyler finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "That's quite a story," she said finally. "It's not a story, it's the truth. I believe you, but believing and proving are different things. Do you have the evidence? The phone? The documents?" And Tyler felt his heart sink. Because the evidence wasn't here. The evidence was with Shadow, waiting outside, and Cole was between them. "It's close," Tyler said carefully, "but I couldn't bring it inside. Cole's men are everywhere." "Then how do you expect me to—" A knock at the door, sharp, urgent. "Governor!" A voice from outside. "There's a situation at the gate." Governor Martinez frowned and crossed to the door, opening it to reveal one of her security staff. "What situation?" "A group of motorcycles, Hell's Angels. They're demanding entry. They say they have evidence for you. Important evidence. And Tyler felt his heart leap. Let them in, Governor Martinez said. Ma'am, Sheriff Cole is insisting. I don't care what Sheriff Cole is insisting. This is still my house and my decision. Let them in. All of them. The next few minutes were chaos. Vex walked in first, his wounded arm still in a sling, his face carved from determination. Shadow behind him, carrying a folder that contained everything. Hammer, Preacher, Stitch, and half a dozen others, spreading out around the room like they were expecting a fight. And Cole, standing in the doorway, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Governor, this is completely inappropriate, Cole said. These people are criminals, gang members, suspected of arson and… Suspected by whom? Vex interrupted. By you? The same man who burned our clubhouse? The same man who tried to murder this boy? The same man whose crimes are documented in that folder? This is slander. Lies. I'll have your patches for this. You can try. And Governor Martinez raised her hand. Enough, both of you. She turned to Shadow. You have evidence? Shadow stepped forward and placed the folder on her desk. Everything. Phone records, audio recordings, names, dates, locations, enough to put Sheriff Cole away for the rest of his natural life. Governor Martinez opened the folder and started reading, and her expression changed. What had been neutral became something harder, colder, more dangerous than anything Tyler had ever seen on a politician's face. This is… She looked up at Cole. This is you, Marcus, your voice, discussing shipments, discussing payments, discussing what happens to the merchandise that doesn't cooperate. Fabrications, deep fakes. You can do anything with technology these days. Can you? Then explain this. She held up a photograph. That's you, at a location you told the FBI you'd never visited, with people you swore under oath you'd never met. And for the first time, Cole's composure cracked. Really cracked. Elena, listen to me. We've known each other for 15 years. You know me. You know I would never… I thought I knew you. I trusted you. I defended you when people raised questions. And this whole time you were running a trafficking operation through my state, using my resources, making me complicit in your crimes. That's not… How many people, Marcus? How many runaways? How many migrants? How many people who trusted the system to protect them? And Cole's mask finally fell away completely. What was underneath wasn't the charming sheriff or the concerned lawman. It was something cold, something predatory, something that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. You want numbers? Cole's voice dropped all pretense. Fine. Thousands. Over the years. And you know what? Every single one of them would have been forgotten anyway. Runaways, illegals, nobodies. I just accelerated the process, made money doing it, built something that mattered. Something that mattered. You sold human beings. I moved product, same as any businessman, and I would have kept doing it for another 20 years if this worthless piece of trash hadn't wandered into a bar with a ring he should have pawned. And Cole turned to Tyler, and there was murder in his eyes. You know what the funny thing is? You could have sold that ring for $50, could have bought food, a bus ticket, a warm bed. Instead, you decided to be honest, to do the right thing, and now look where it got you. And Tyler felt fear, real fear, the kind that made your bones ache and your blood run cold. But he also felt something else. It got me here, Tyler said, and his voice was steady even though his hands were shaking. Standing in front of people who actually care about the truth. It got me a family who took a bullet for me. It got me a chance to stop you. So yeah, I'd say doing the right thing worked out pretty well. And Cole lunged. It happened so fast that Tyler barely had time to react. One moment, Cole was across the room. The next, he was on top of Tyler, hands around his throat, rage twisting his features into something barely human. And then Vex was there, and Hammer, and Preacher, pulling Cole off, slamming him against the wall, holding him there while he thrashed and screamed, "Get off me! Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do?" "I know exactly what you can do," Vex said quietly, "and I know exactly what you're never going to do again." Governor Martinez was already on the phone. "I need federal marshals at my residence immediately. Yes, immediately. I have a suspect in custody who needs to be transported to federal holding. Sheriff Marcus Cole. Yes, you heard me correctly." And Tyler sat on the floor, rubbing his throat, watching as everything Cole had built came crashing down around him. And he felt something strange. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just exhaustion and relief. And something that might have been the beginning of peace. The federal marshals arrived within 20 minutes. They took Cole in handcuffs, still screaming threats and accusations, still insisting that this was all a mistake, that he had powerful friends, that everyone involved would regret this. But the threats felt hollow now. The power was gone. The empire was crumbling. And Tyler watched them put Cole in the back of a federal vehicle and drive away into the night. "It's over," Stitch said, standing beside him. "It's really over." "Is it?" "The main threat, yeah. There'll be trials, testimony, months of legal stuff, but Cole is done. His operation is done. The people he worked with are going to scatter like roaches when the light comes on. What happens to me?" And that was the question Tyler had been afraid to ask. The question that had been lurking underneath everything else, because the immediate danger was past. But he was still 17, still a runaway, still technically a minor with no legal guardian and no place to go. Vex appeared beside him, as if summoned by the question. "What happens to you," Vex said slowly, "is something we need to talk about, all of us. Am I going back into the system? Do you want to go back into the system?" And Tyler thought about group homes and foster families and social workers who meant well but never had time. Thought about sleeping in strange beds and learning new rules and never staying anywhere long enough to matter. "No," he said quietly, "I don't want to go back into the system." "Then you won't. We'll figure something out. I've got lawyers. I've got contacts. And after tonight, I've got a governor who owes me another favor." "You do that? Take on a 17-year-old with nothing but problems?" And Vex looked at him for a long moment, looked at this kid who had walked into a bar with a ring and somehow become the center of everything. "You're not nothing but problems," Vex said. "You're the kid who did the right thing when it would have been easier to do nothing. You're the kid who stood up to a killer without flinching. You're the kid who reminded an old biker that honor isn't dead, it's just hiding in unexpected places. That's not nothing, that's everything." And Tyler felt something crack inside him, something that had been holding together for too long. "I don't know how to be part of something," he admitted. "I've been alone for so long. I don't know how to trust people, how to stay, how to belong." "Nobody does, not at first. You learn, day by day, choice by choice. And when you mess up, and you will mess up, you apologize and try again. That's all any of us do." "What if I can't learn?" "You already have. You just don't know it yet." Governor Martinez approached them, her expression softer now, some of the political armor stripped away. "Mr. Thornton, Tyler, I need to thank you both. What you've done tonight, it's going to change things, real change, the kind that actually matters." "We didn't do it for thanks," Vex said. "I know, that's what makes it matter." She turned to Tyler. "I understand you're in a difficult situation. No family, no legal guardian, technically a ward of the state." "Yes, ma'am." "I've spoken with my legal counsel. There are options, emergency guardianship, expedited processes. Given the circumstances, given what you've done, I think we can find a solution that keeps you out of the system and in a stable environment." "What kind of solution?" And Governor Martinez looked at Vex. and Vex looked at Tyler, and something passed between all of them that didn't need words. "If Mr. Thornton is willing," Governor Martinez said, "and if you're willing, we can begin the process of making him your legal guardian. It would take time. There would be paperwork, background checks, home visits, but it's possible, if it's what you both want." And Tyler turned to Vex, and Vex was waiting, not pushing, not presuming, just waiting for Tyler to make his own choice. "You'd really do that?" Tyler asked. "Take responsibility for me? Legally?" "I'd do it without the legal part if I could, but yeah, if you want it, if you're ready to stop running and start building something, I'd be honored." And Tyler thought about his grandmother, about the lessons she taught him, about doing the right thing even when it was hard, about integrity being its own reward. And he thought about the ring on his finger, about everything it represented, about the brother Vex had lost and the brotherhood that had risen from that loss. And he made his choice. "I want it," Tyler said. "I want to stay. I want to learn. I want to be part of something that matters." And Vex smiled, a real smile, the kind that transformed his scarred face into something almost gentle. "Then welcome home, kid. Welcome home." The night stretched on. There were more conversations, more paperwork, more explanations and arrangements, and the thousand small details that came with changing a life from one thing to another. And through all of it, Tyler felt something growing inside him, something new, something fragile but real. Hope. Not the desperate hope of someone waiting to be rescued, but the solid hope of someone who had found their place, their purpose, their people. As dawn approached, the Hells Angels gathered outside the mansion, preparing for the ride back. Bikes gleaming in the early light, leather cuts showing patches earned through years of loyalty and sacrifice. And Tyler stood among them, not as an outsider, not as a charity case, but as someone who belonged. Hammer clapped him on the shoulder so hard, Tyler nearly fell over. "You did good tonight, kid. Real good." "I was terrified the whole time." "So were we. That's the secret nobody tells you. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway." Preacher nodded his agreement. "The Lord works in mysterious ways. Sometimes those ways involve a 17-year-old with more guts than sense walking into a governor's mansion alone." "I wasn't alone," Tyler said. "Not really. I had you all with me, even when I couldn't see you." And Stitch, who rarely showed emotion, looked away quickly, but not before Tyler saw her eyes glistening. All right, she said gruffly. "Enough sentiment. We've got a long ride back, and I need to check Vex's wound before he does something stupid and tears his stitches." "I heard that," Vex called from nearby. "You were supposed to." And despite everything, despite the exhaustion and the fear and the weight of what they'd been through, Tyler laughed. A real laugh. The first one in longer than he could remember, and it felt like freedom. The convoy pulled out as the sun crept over the horizon. 15 bikes moving in formation, engines creating a harmony that Tyler was beginning to love. And Tyler rode behind Vex, arms wrapped around the man who had taken a bullet for him, who had stood up to a killer for him, who was going to become his family. And as Phoenix disappeared behind them, Tyler thought about everything that had happened since he pushed through the door of that bar with a ring in his pocket and fear in his heart. He thought about Cole's face when the cuffs went on, about Governor Martinez's expression when she realized the truth, about Vex laying down his cut on that wet highway, willing to sacrifice everything for someone he barely knew. And he thought about his grandmother, about her voice, about her lessons, about the woman who had raised him to believe that integrity mattered, that honesty mattered, that doing the right thing was never truly wasted. "Grandma," Tyler whispered into the wind, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "I hope you can see this. I hope you know what happened. I hope you're proud." And maybe it was his imagination. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was just the way the morning light hit the clouds. But for just a moment, Tyler could have sworn he felt a hand on his shoulder. Warm, gentle, familiar, and a voice in his heart that said, "I always was." The clubhouse was gone, burned to ash in memory, but the brotherhood remained. They gathered at Hammer's Contacts Ranch, the same place they had sheltered before the final confrontation. And someone had brought food, and someone else had brought drinks, and slowly, gradually, the celebration began. Not wild, not reckless, but real. A recognition that they had survived something that should have destroyed them. And Tyler sat in the middle of it, watching these people who had become his family, feeling the ring on his finger, knowing that everything had changed. Vex sat beside him, his good arm resting on Tyler's shoulder. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Everything and nothing. Like I'm waking up from a dream I can't quite remember." "That's normal. Big changes take time to settle. Don't rush it." "What happens now?" Now we rebuild. Find a new place for the clubhouse. Get back to what we do. And figure out how to make you a proper member of this family." I can't be a Hell's Angel. I'm 17. I don't even have a motorcycle." "You don't need to be a patched member to be family. And the motorcycle thing? We can fix that. Hammer's been looking for a project." And Tyler looked over at Hammer, who was arm wrestling Preacher and losing badly, and he smiled. "I'd like that. Learning to ride. Being part of this." "Then that's what we'll do. One day at a time. One lesson at a time. Until you're ready for whatever comes next. And if I'm never ready, then we'll figure that out too. That's what family does. They figure it out together." And Tyler leaned back, feeling the warmth of the morning, feeling the presence of people who cared about him, feeling something he had been searching for his entire life without even knowing it. Home. Not a place, not a building, but a feeling, a belonging, a connection that went deeper than blood and stronger than fear. He had walked into a bar with nothing but a ring and the clothes on his back, and he had found everything. And outside the sun climbed higher, burning away the shadows of the night, promising a new day full of possibilities that Tyler was only beginning to imagine. And somewhere, in a federal holding cell, Marcus Cole was learning what it felt like to be powerless, to be trapped, to be at the mercy of a system he had corrupted for so long. And Tyler didn't feel sorry for him, not even a little. Some people made their choices, and those choices made them. Cole had chosen power over people, profit over humanity, control over compassion. And Tyler had chosen differently. He had chosen to return a ring he didn't have to return, to walk into danger he didn't have to face, to trust people he had no reason to trust. And those choices had made him too, made him part of something bigger than himself, made him family, made him home. The first week was the hardest, not because of danger, not because of fear, but because Tyler had spent so many years surviving that he had forgotten how to live. He woke up every morning expecting the worst, expected hands to grab him, expected voices to tell him it was time to go, expected everything good to be ripped away the moment he started believing in it. And every morning, Vex was there, coffee brewing, breakfast waiting, a quiet presence that asked nothing and offered everything. "You don't have to watch me like I'm going to disappear," Tyler said on the fourth morning, his voice rougher than he intended. "I'm not watching you disappear, I'm watching you arrive." What does that even mean? It means you've been running so long you don't know what standing still looks like. It means you're scared that if you stop moving, everything will catch up to you. It means you're waiting for the other shoe to drop because that's all you've ever known. And Tyler felt exposed, seen in a way that made him want to run and stay at the same time. "How do you know that?" "Because I was you, 40 years ago. Different circumstances, same fear. And someone did for me what I'm trying to do for you. They waited. They stayed. They let me figure out that safety wasn't a trap." "Who was it?" "Danny. My brother, the one the ring belonged to. And Tyler looked down at the ring on his finger. The ring he kept forgetting was there. The ring that had started everything. Tell me about him. And Vex did. He told Tyler about two kids from broken homes who found each other in a group home at 14. About the fights they got into protecting each other. About the day they ran away together and never looked back. About joining the Hells Angels, not for the danger, but for the family. About building something that mattered from nothing. And he told Tyler about the Tucson standoff. About 6 hours of hell. About Danny bleeding out while Vex held him and begged him to stay. His last words were about the ring, Vex said quietly. He told me to keep it. Told me it was supposed to be for his son if he ever had one. Told me to give it to someone who deserved it if he never got the chance. And you gave it to me. I gave it to someone who reminded me why Danny wore it in the first place. Because he believed that honor mattered, that doing the right thing mattered, that some things were worth dying for. And Tyler felt the weight of that, the responsibility, the legacy he was carrying without having asked for it. I don't know if I can live up to that, Tyler admitted. You already have. Now you just have to keep doing it, day by day, choice by choice. The guardianship paperwork moved faster than anyone expected. Governor Martinez pulled strings. Vex's lawyers filed motions. And within 2 weeks, Tyler Brooks was officially no longer a ward of the state. He was Vex's, legally, permanently, for as long as it mattered. And the day the papers were signed, Tyler stood in a courthouse bathroom, staring at himself in the mirror, trying to recognize the person looking back. You okay in there? Vex's voice came through the door. Yeah, just processing. Take your time. We've got nowhere to be. And Tyler splashed water on his face and tried to breathe through the tightness in his chest. He had a legal guardian, someone responsible for him, someone who had chosen him not because of obligation or money or pity, but because of something Tyler still didn't fully understand. And that was terrifying, because people who chose you could also unchoose you, could decide you were too much trouble, too broken, too damaged to be worth the effort. Tyler had been unchosen before, by foster families who gave up, by social workers who stopped caring, by his own mother who had loved him but hadn't loved him enough to leave a man who used her as a punching bag. And now Vex had chosen him. And Tyler was waiting for the moment when that choice would be taken back. He walked out of the bathroom. Vex was waiting, leaning against the wall, patient as always. Ready to go home? Home. The words still felt strange in Tyler's mouth. Yeah, I think so. You don't have to be sure. You just have to be willing to try. And they walked out of the courthouse together, into a sunlight that felt different somehow. Brighter, more real. The new clubhouse was still under construction. Insurance money from the fire, plus contributions from allied chapters, was slowly turning an abandoned warehouse into something livable. And Tyler threw himself into the work with an intensity that surprised everyone, including himself. Kids got hands, Hammer observed one afternoon, watching Tyler wrestle with a stubborn section of drywall. Never would have guessed it looking at him. He's got a lot of things people wouldn't guess, Vex replied. Just needed a chance to show them. You really think he's going to make it, long term? I think he's already made it. He just doesn't know it yet. And across the room, Tyler heard every word. And something warm spread through his chest that he was afraid to name. The call came 3 weeks after the paperwork was signed. Vex answered, his face going pale as he listened. And Tyler felt his stomach drop, because he knew that look. That was the look that came before bad news, before everything fell apart. What is it? Tyler demanded when Vex hung up. What happened? Cole's lawyer filed a motion, claims the evidence was obtained illegally, claims his rights were violated. He's trying to get everything thrown out. Can he do that? He can try. Whether he succeeds is another question. And Tyler felt the fear creeping back, the old familiar fear that told him good things never lasted, that told him every happiness came with a price. If he gets out, he won't. The feds have their own evidence now, their own investigation. Even if our stuff gets thrown out, they've got enough to bury him. But what if they don't? What if he walks? What if he comes after us? And Vex crossed the room and put his hands on Tyler's shoulders, grounding him, anchoring him. Then we deal with it, together, the way we've dealt with everything else. You're not alone anymore, Tyler. You never have to be alone again. You can't promise that. I can, and I am. Whatever happens with Cole, whatever comes next, we face it as a family. That's not going to change. And Tyler wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that those words meant something. But 17 years of disappointment were hard to unlearn in 3 weeks. I'm trying, Tyler said quietly, to believe you, to trust this, but it's hard. I know, and that's okay. Trust isn't built in a day. It's built in moments, small ones, repeated over and over until they become something solid. We'll get there. The trial date was set for 6 months out, and in those 6 months, Tyler's life became something he wouldn't have recognized a year ago. He started school, not a regular school, but an online program that Stitch had found, one designed for kids who had missed too much to catch up conventionally. And Tyler discovered that he wasn't stupid. He had just never had anyone who believed he could learn. "You're good at this," Stitch said one afternoon, looking over his shoulder at a math assignment he had just completed. "Really good. It's just numbers." "It's not just numbers, it's logic, pattern recognition, problem solving. You've got a brain, Tyler. You just never had a chance to use it." And Tyler felt something shift, something that had been telling him for years that he was worthless, that he was nothing, that he was a burden. Maybe that voice had been wrong. He learned to ride. Hammer took charge of that, putting Tyler on an old Honda that had seen better days but still ran true. "Respect the machine," Hammer said on the first day. "It's not a toy. It's not a weapon. It's a partnership. You treat it right, it treats you right. You get sloppy, it puts you in the ground." And Tyler learned, fell down, got back up, fell down again, got back up again. "You've got guts, kid," Hammer admitted after Tyler took a particularly hard spill and was back on the bike before the dust settled. "I'll give you that. Had a lot of practice falling down. That's half of riding. The other half is getting up. You've got both." And the day Tyler completed his first solo ride, Hammer actually smiled. A real smile. The kind that transformed his brutal face into something almost gentle. "Proud of you," Hammer said. Just 2 words, but they hit Tyler harder than any fist ever had. Preacher taught him about faith. Not the religious kind, not exactly, but something deeper. "Faith isn't about believing in a God you can't see," Preacher explained one evening. "It's about believing in possibilities, in potential, in the idea that tomorrow can be different from today." I've never been good at that. Tomorrow usually turned out to be worse than today. Until it didn't. Until you walked into that bar and everything changed. That was faith, Tyler. You didn't know what would happen. You just believed it was worth trying. I didn't believe anything. I was just desperate. Desperation and faith look the same from the outside. The only difference is what you do with them. Desperation makes you reckless. Faith makes you brave. You were brave that night. You've been brave ever since. And Tyler thought about that, about the line between desperation and faith, about all the times he had crossed it without knowing. How do you know when you've crossed from one to the other? When you start doing things for someone other than yourself. Desperation is selfish. It has to be. It's about survival. Faith is generous. It's about possibility. You stopped being desperate the moment you chose to return that ring instead of selling it. And Tyler looked at the ring on his finger, the ring that had started everything. I didn't feel brave. I felt stupid. Bravery always feels stupid in the moment. It's only in hindsight that it looks like courage. Shadow taught him something too, though Shadow would never have called it teaching. "Watch people," Shadow said one afternoon, the first complete sentence he had directed at Tyler in weeks. "Not their words, words lie. Watch their hands, their eyes, the way they move when they think no one's paying attention." Why? Because knowing what people are going to do before they do it is the only advantage that matters. Everything else can be taken away. Knowledge stays. And Tyler started watching, started noticing things he had been blind to before. The way Hammer's hands tightened when he was worried. The way Preacher's eyes went distant when he was remembering something painful. The way Stitch's movements became more precise when she was stressed. And the way Vex looked at him when he thought Tyler wasn't paying attention. Like he was something precious, something worth protecting, something that mattered. "I see you watching," Shadow said one day. "You're learning." Learning what? That people tell you everything if you know how to listen. Words are the smallest part of communication. The rest is written in the body, in the breath, in the space between. Is that how you knew Cole's men were coming? That night at the ranch? That night and every night before it. I've been watching Cole for years, waiting for him to make a mistake. He finally did when he went after you. I was the mistake? You were the variable he couldn't control, the honest kid in a dishonest world. Men like Cole don't know what to do with people like you. They expect everyone to be corruptible. When they meet someone who isn't, it breaks their entire system. And Tyler felt something like understanding dawn. That's why you all took me in. Not just because Vex asked, because I represented something that some people still choose right over easy. We needed that reminder, more than you know. The motion to dismiss Cole's case was denied. Vex got the call on a Tuesday afternoon, and his whoop of joy brought everyone running. "It's over," he said, grinning so wide his scars stretched. The federal judge ruled the evidence admissible. Cole's going to trial, and with what they've got, he's never seeing daylight again. And the clubhouse erupted. Hammer was actually hugging people. Preacher was praying out loud. Stitch was crying and pretending she wasn't. And Tyler stood in the middle of it all, feeling something he had been afraid to feel for months. Relief. Real, genuine, bone-deep relief. Cole was going to prison. The trafficking ring was dismantled. The people who had been hunted were safe. And Tyler was part of that. His courage, his choice, his decision to return a ring instead of selling it. It mattered. He mattered. And for the first time in his life, Tyler truly believed it. The trial took 3 weeks. Tyler testified on the 7th day. Walking into that courtroom was one of the hardest things he had ever done. Harder than the bar, harder than the mansion, harder than anything, because Cole was there, sitting at the defendant's table, looking at Tyler with eyes that still held murder. And Tyler felt the fear, felt it trying to drown him, felt it trying to silence him. But then he looked at the gallery, at Vex, at Hammer, at Preacher and Stitch and Shadow, and all the others who had come to support him. And he found his voice. He told them everything, about the ring, about the bar, about the gas station where he had found evidence Cole thought was destroyed, about the night Cole had tried to kill him, about the fire, about running and hiding and finally standing. And when the prosecutor asked why he had returned the ring instead of selling it, Tyler gave the only answer that mattered. Because my grandmother taught me that character is what you do when no one's watching. She taught me that integrity matters more than survival. She taught me that the measure of a man isn't what he has, it's what he gives. And I wanted to give that ring back to whoever lost it. I wanted to do something right for once in my life. And the courtroom was silent, and Cole's face twisted with something like hatred and something like fear. And Tyler knew, in that moment, that he had won. The verdict came on a Friday, guilty, on all counts, trafficking, conspiracy, attempted murder, corruption, everything. Cole was sentenced to multiple life terms, no possibility of parole. And as they led him away, he turned and looked at Tyler one last time. "This isn't over," Cole said. "I've got friends, long memories. You're going to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." And Tyler stood up, looked Cole directly in the eyes, and said, "No, I'm not, because I've got friends too, and mine don't hide behind badges." And Cole was gone. And Tyler realized that his hands weren't shaking. The celebration that night was epic. Not just the Arizona chapter, but Hell's Angels from across the Southwest. Hundreds of bikes, hundreds of patches, hundreds of people who had come to honor what they had done. And Tyler stood in the middle of it, overwhelmed and grateful, and something else he couldn't name. "You look like you're about to bolt," Stitch observed, appearing at his elbow with a bottle of water. "I'm not used to attention." "You're going to have to get used to it. Whether you like it or not, you're a legend now. The kid who brought down a sheriff, the kid who stood up to a killer, the kid who reminded everyone what this club is supposed to be about." "I don't want to be a legend." Nobody does. Legends aren't made by people seeking glory. They're made by people doing what needs to be done and living long enough to tell about it. And Tyler thought about that, about all the people who hadn't lived to tell about it, about the runaways Cole had taken, about the lives that had been destroyed before Tyler ever walked into that bar. "I got lucky," he said quietly. "So many others didn't." That's true. And the best way to honor that luck is to do something with it, to make it mean something. Like what? That's for you to figure out, but I have a feeling you'll find your way. Vex found him later, sitting alone on the edge of the gathering, watching the stars. "Big night," Vex said, settling beside him. "Yeah. You okay?" "I think so. Better than okay, maybe. I keep waiting for something bad to happen, for all of this to fall apart. It might, someday. Nothing lasts forever, but that doesn't make it less real. It doesn't make it less worth having. My grandmother used to say that nothing gold can stay. Smart woman, the smartest." And they sat in silence for a while, two people who had been broken and rebuilt, watching the stars and feeling the weight of everything that had happened. "I want to do something," Tyler said finally, "with my life. Something that matters, something that honors all of this." "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet. Maybe help other kids, other runaways, the ones who don't find a bar with the right people inside, the ones who end up like I almost ended up." And Vex was quiet for a moment. "That's a big goal." "Too big?" "No such thing as too big. Just too soon or not soon enough. You've got time, you've got resources now, and you've got a family who will help you figure it out." And Tyler looked at Vex, at this man who had taken a bullet for him, who had fought for him, who had chosen him when choosing him meant risking everything. "Thank you," Tyler said, "for everything, for the ring, for the protection, for believing I was worth saving." "You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do. Because nobody ever has. Nobody ever believed I was worth anything. And you did. From the first moment, you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." And Vex turned to face him, and his expression was serious but soft. "You want to know what I saw? I saw a kid who walked into the most dangerous room he could have walked into and did the right thing anyway. I saw integrity in a world that had tried to beat it out of him. I saw someone who reminded me of the person I used to be before life got complicated. You didn't need saving, Tyler. You needed a chance. That's all anyone needs." And Tyler felt tears on his cheeks, felt something release that he had been holding for years. "I miss her," he whispered. "My grandmother. I miss her so much." "I know. She would have liked you, would have liked all of this. She used to say that the universe sends us the people we need when we need them, even if we don't recognize them at first." Sounds like something preacher would say. Maybe, or maybe wisdom just sounds the same no matter who says it. And Vex reached out and pulled Tyler into a hug, a real hug, the kind Tyler hadn't felt since his grandmother died. She'd be proud of you, Vex said quietly. I know she would. You've become someone worth being proud of. And Tyler held on and let himself feel it. And for the first time since he was 14 years old, he didn't feel alone. The summer faded into fall. Tyler finished his first semester of online school with grades that surprised everyone, especially himself. He got his motorcycle license, started helping around the new clubhouse that was finally taking shape, and slowly, gradually, the fear began to fade. Not completely. Tyler didn't think it would ever disappear entirely, but it became manageable. Background noise instead of screaming alarm. He still had nightmares sometimes, still woke up reaching for a ring that was already on his finger, still flinched at sudden movements. But he also laughed and trusted and let himself be part of something bigger than his own survival. And on the first anniversary of the night he walked into the Blackstone Saloon, Tyler stood in front of the new clubhouse, looking at the Hells Angels banner that hung over the door. Vex came to stand beside him. 1 year, Vex said, feels longer and shorter, both at once. Big years do that. I was thinking about what you said, about Danny's ring, about how it was supposed to go to someone who deserved it. Yeah? I want to earn it, properly. I want to become someone who truly deserves what you gave me. And Vex looked at him, at this young man who had been a frightened boy just 12 months ago, at the person Tyler was becoming. You already have, kid. You already have. And Tyler shook his head. Not yet, but I'm going to. I promise. And that promise settled over both of them like a vow. A promise made in leather and blood. A promise that would shape everything that came after. 3 years passed like water through fingers, fast and slow, everything and nothing. Tyler turned 20 in March, and the party at the clubhouse was the kind of chaos that only the Hells Angels could create. Hammer had somehow acquired a cake that was shaped like a motorcycle. Preacher gave a toast that lasted 20 minutes and made half the room cry. Stitch pretended she hadn't spent 3 days planning the whole thing, and Vex watched it all with something that looked like pride and something that looked like grief. Because watching someone grow up meant watching time pass, and time passing meant getting closer to the end of things. You're brooding, Shadow said, appearing at Vex's elbow without warning, as always. I'm reflecting. There's a difference. Reflecting is just brooding with better marketing. And Vex almost laughed. Almost. He's different, Vex said, watching Tyler across the room, watching him laugh with people who had become family. Than I was at his age. Better, cleaner, less anger. He had someone to show him another way. You didn't. Danny tried. Danny was fighting his own battles. He gave you what he could. You gave Tyler more because you had more to give. And Vex let that settle. Let it become part of the complicated landscape of memory and loss and hope. Think he's ready? Vex asked. For what? For whatever comes next. For the world. For life without us hovering over him. And Shadow was quiet for a moment. I think he's been ready for a while. The question is whether you're ready to let him fly. Tyler found him an hour later when the party was winding down and the noise had faded to comfortable murmur. You've been quiet all night, Tyler said, settling beside him. Everything okay? Just thinking about time, about how fast it moves when you're not looking. Getting philosophical in your old age? Watch it, kid. I can still take you. Please, Hammer's been training me for 3 years. I could take you with one hand. And they both knew it wasn't true, but they both pretended it might be, because that was the kind of relationship they had built. Honest in the ways that mattered, playful in the ways that didn't. I've been thinking about something, Tyler said, about what I want to do with my life. The shelter idea? More than that, I talked to some people, counselors, social workers. There's a program at the state university, social work, crisis intervention. It would take 4 years, but after that, I could actually help. Not just throw money at the problem, actually be there for kids like I was. And Vex felt something swell in his chest, something that ached and healed at the same time. That's a big commitment. I know. University means leaving, being away. Not that far. Phoenix is only a few hours. I could come back weekends, holidays. And Vex heard what Tyler wasn't saying. The fear underneath the certainty. The worry that leaving would somehow break what they had built. You don't need my permission, Vex said gently. I know I don't, but I want your blessing. There's a difference. And Vex turned to face him. This young man who had walked into a bar as a frightened boy and had become something remarkable. This person who had reminded him what honor meant, what family meant, what hope meant. You have it. You've always had it. From the moment you handed me that ring. And Tyler's eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. Thank you for everything. Stop thanking me. You did the work. I just provided the space. You provided a lot more than space. And they sat together in comfortable silence. Two people who had been strangers and had become family, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was yet to come. The acceptance letter arrived 6 weeks later. Tyler held it in shaking hands, reading the words 3 times before they finally sank in. Full scholarship, room and board, everything covered because of his grades, his story, his essay about finding family in unexpected places. You got in, Stitch said, reading over his shoulder. You actually got in. I actually got in. And then everyone was crowding around, and Hammer was picking him up off the ground in a hug that crushed the air from his lungs. And Preacher was praying again, and Shadow was nodding in that way that meant more than any words. And Tyler felt something he had chased his whole life without knowing it. He felt worthy. The summer before university was bittersweet. Tyler threw himself into club work, knowing that his time was limited, wanting to contribute as much as possible before he left. And Vex watched him with mixed emotions. Pride, fear, joy, grief. The complicated soup of feelings that came with loving someone and letting them go. You're hovering, Stitch observed one afternoon. I am not. You've checked on him 4 times in the last hour. That's hovering. And Vex sighed, because she was right, and being called out by Stitch was never comfortable. I'm worried, he admitted. He's been through so much. What if university is too much? What if the pressure breaks him? What if everything we built falls apart the moment he's on his own? Then he'll rebuild, the way he rebuilt before, the way we all rebuild. That's the point, Vex. You can't protect him from life. You can only give him tools to survive it. I know, you love him. And loving someone means being afraid for them. That's part of the deal. And Vex nodded, because she was right about that too. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise, you just don't listen. The night before Tyler left for Phoenix, the whole chapter gathered for a send-off that was half celebration and half mourning. And Tyler stood among them, feeling the weight of everything he was leaving behind and everything he was moving toward. Speech, Hammer demanded. You can't leave without a speech. I'm not good at speeches. Neither was Preacher, and that never stopped him. And there was laughter, and Tyler felt something loosen in his chest. Fine, he said, but don't expect Shakespeare. He stood up, looked around at the faces that had become more familiar than his own, and tried to find words for something that felt too big for language. 3 years ago, I walked into a bar with a ring in my pocket and nothing else. No family, no hope, no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to return something that didn't belong to me. That's all. I didn't expect anything. I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted to do one right thing before life got worse. He paused, swallowed, and instead of getting worse, life got better. Because of all of you. Because you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Because you protected me when I couldn't protect myself. Because you taught me what family really means. His voice cracked, but he kept going. My grandmother used to say that the measure of a man isn't what he has, it's what he gives. I didn't understand that when she said it. I was too young, too scared, too focused on surviving to think about giving. But I understand it now, because all of you have given me everything. A home, a family, a future. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that. And the room was quiet, and then Hammer was crying, which made everyone uncomfortable, because Hammer never cried. And Preacher was praying again, and Stitch was trying to pretend she wasn't emotional. And Shadow was just watching with those eyes that saw everything. And Vex stood up. "My turn," he said, and his voice was rough in ways that had nothing to do with the whiskey. 3 years ago, I lost a ring that meant everything to me. It was the last piece of my brother, the last connection to someone I loved more than my own life. And I thought I would never see it again. He looked at Tyler. And then a kid walked into a bar and gave it back. Not because he wanted something, not because he had an angle, but because it was the right thing to do. And in that moment, I realized something I had forgotten. That there are still good people in this world. People who do the right thing just because it's right. People who give without expecting anything in return. He crossed to Tyler. "That ring belonged to my brother. He told me to give it to his son if he ever had one. He didn't, so I gave it to you. Because you're as close to a son as I'm ever going to have. And I'm proud of you. Danny would be proud of you. Everyone who ever gave a damn about honor and integrity would be proud of you." And Vex pulled off his own cut. The leather vest that marked him as president, the symbol of everything he had built. "I'm not giving you this," he said. "Not yet. You're not a member. You're something better. You're the reason we exist, the reminder that what we do matters. So I'm keeping this for you, until the day you're ready, until the day you come back and claim it." And Tyler looked at the cut, at the patches that represented decades of loyalty and sacrifice, and he felt the weight of what Vex was saying. "I'm not sure I'll ever be ready for that." I wasn't either, but ready has a way of finding you. And Tyler hugged him, held on tight, let himself feel everything he had been holding back. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything, for believing in me, for saving my life. You saved mine too, kid, more than you know." Phoenix was different from anything Tyler had experienced. The first week was overwhelming. New people, new places, new expectations. A world that moved faster than he was used to, that demanded more than he thought he had. But he had been through worse, had survived worse, and survival was a skill that transferred. He called Vex every night that first week. Long conversations about nothing and everything. The weather, the food, the professor who reminded him of Preacher, the roommate who snored like a broken engine. "You're doing fine," Vex said on the 7th night. "You just don't know it yet." "How can you tell?" "Because you're still calling, still checking in, still connected. The ones who aren't fine go silent. You're the opposite of silent." And Tyler laughed, because it was true, because Vex knew him better than anyone. "I miss you all, more than I expected." "We miss you too. Hammer's been impossible, keeps asking when you're coming back." "Tell him I'll be there for Thanksgiving." "I'll tell him. He'll probably start counting the days." The first semester passed in a blur of classes and assignments and late nights studying things Tyler never thought he would understand. And he discovered something surprising. He was good at this, not just surviving, actually thriving, understanding concepts, making connections, seeing patterns in human behavior that others missed because he had lived them. "You've got instincts," his advisor said during their first progress meeting. "Raw talent. Most students have to learn empathy. You've already got it." "I had good teachers." "Whatever you had, it's working. Keep it up." And Tyler felt something he had chased his whole life. He felt competent. The call came in February. Tyler was in the middle of a study session when his phone rang. Vex's number. And something in his gut twisted because Vex never called during the day, never interrupted unless it was important. "What's wrong?" Tyler asked, skipping the greeting. "It's Hammer. He was in an accident. Car ran him off the road." And Tyler felt the world tilt. "Is he alive?" "Barely. Stitch is with him. Doctors are doing everything they can." "I'm coming. Right now, I'm coming." "Tyler, you have class. You have—" "I don't care. Hammer's family. I'm coming." He was on a bus within the hour, made it to the hospital by nightfall, found the whole chapter gathered in a waiting room that smelled like fear and antiseptic. And Vex looked old, older than Tyler had ever seen him, worn down by worry in ways that couldn't be hidden. "How is he?" "Surgery. 4 hours now. They're saying it's touch and go." And Tyler felt useless, felt powerless, felt all the old fears rushing back, reminding him that good things never lasted, that everyone he loved would be taken away. "This wasn't an accident," Shadow said quietly. "The car that hit him, it was stolen, found burned 3 miles away." "Cole's people?" "Cole's dead. Heart attack in prison 6 months ago. But he had friends, friends with long memories." And Tyler felt rage, pure, clean rage that burned away the fear. "Then we find them. We're working on it, but right now we wait. We pray. We do what families do." The surgery lasted 6 more hours, and Tyler spent every minute of it sitting between Vex and Stitch, holding hands that needed holding, being present in the only way he knew how. And when the surgeon finally came out, face exhausted but expression cautiously hopeful, Tyler felt something release that he hadn't known he was holding. "He's stable. It was close. Another few minutes and we would have lost him. But he's strong, stubborn as hell, according to the nurses. He should make it." And the room exhaled, and Tyler cried, and nobody told him to stop. Tyler stayed for 2 weeks, missed classes, missed assignments, missed everything except what mattered. He sat with Hammer every day, talked to him even when Hammer couldn't respond, told him stories about university, about the professors, about the life he was building. "You gotta wake up," Tyler said on the 3rd day. "I still owe you for teaching me to ride. You can't die before I pay that back." And Hammer's fingers twitched, and Tyler's heart stopped. "Hammer, can you hear me?" Another twitch, then a groan, then eyes opening, focusing, recognizing. "Kid," Hammer rasped, "you look like hell." And Tyler laughed through tears. "You're one to talk. You look like someone ran you over." "Someone did. Remind me to return the favor." And Tyler held his hand and didn't let go. "I'm so glad you're okay. I don't know what I would have done if—" Don't do that. I'm too old and too broken for emotional speeches. Just be here. That's enough." And Tyler was there, and it was enough. The men who had attacked Hammer were found 3 weeks later. Shadow's network was extensive, and revenge was patient. But Tyler wasn't part of that. Couldn't be part of that. Not anymore. "You're conflicted," Vex observed, the night before Tyler returned to Phoenix. "I want them to pay for what they did to Hammer, for everything Cole's people have done. But I also know that wanting that is exactly what they want. They want us to be like them, to respond with violence, to become the monsters they think we are. And you don't want to be a monster. I want to be something better, something my grandmother would be proud of, something that actually helps instead of just hurting back." And Vex nodded slowly. "That's the choice, isn't it? Always has been. The choice between what feels good and what is good, between revenge and justice, between the person you could be and the person you want to be. How do you live with it, knowing that some people deserve worse than they get, knowing that you could give it to them? I don't live with it, I live through it, day by day, choice by choice. And I try to remember that the moment I become like them, they win. Even if they're dead, they still win." And Tyler thought about that, about Cole, about the men who had hurt Hammer, about all the darkness in the world that seemed to multiply no matter how hard you fought it. Is it worth it? Staying good in a world that rewards being bad? Ask me again in 20 years. I still don't have the answer. Tyler graduated 4 years later, top of his class, with honors that surprised no one who had watched him work. And the whole chapter was there. Every single member. Bikes lined up outside the auditorium, leather cuts gleaming in the spring sun. A wall of family that made the other graduates stare and whisper. And Tyler walked across that stage, accepted that diploma, and looked out at the people who had made it possible. Vex, older now, gray spreading through his hair but still strong, still present, still the anchor that had kept Tyler from drowning. Hammer, walking with a limp that would never fully heal, but alive, fierce, proud. Preacher, Stitch, Shadow, all of them, every face a reminder of what could happen when people chose to care about each other. And Tyler felt something complete inside him. Something that had been broken for so long he had forgotten it could be fixed. He had made it. Not alone, never alone, but he had made it. The ceremony ended, and Tyler was immediately surrounded by leather and congratulations and bear hugs that tested the limits of his ribs. "Proud of you, kid," Hammer rumbled. "So damn proud. Couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." And Vex was waiting at the edge of the crowd, holding something Tyler hadn't expected to see. The ring. Danny's ring. The ring that had started everything. "I think it's time," Vex said, his voice rough with emotion. "Time for what?" "Time for you to have this properly, not as a loan, not as a symbol, as a gift. From me, from Danny, from everyone who believed in you before you believed in yourself." And Vex pressed the ring into Tyler's palm. "You've earned it. Every moment of every day for the last 7 years. You become someone your grandmother would be proud of. Someone Danny would be proud of. Someone I'm proud of." And Tyler looked at the ring, the skull wrapped in flames, the words "Hell's Angels" worn smooth by decades of touch, the weight of history and sacrifice and hope. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just wear it. And remember what it means. Remember where you came from. Remember who you are." And Tyler slipped the ring onto his finger, and it fit perfectly, just like it always had. 2 years later, Tyler opened the first shelter. It was small, just a handful of beds in a converted warehouse. But it was real. It existed. And on the first night, 3 teenagers walked through the door with nothing but the clothes on their backs and fear in their eyes. And Tyler looked at them and saw himself. 7 years ago, desperate, lost, alone. "Welcome," he said. "You're safe here. Whatever happened before, whatever brought you to this door, you're safe now. My name is Tyler, and I'm going to help you." And one of the kids, a girl with dark hair and darker eyes, looked at the ring on his finger. "You're one of them," she said. "The bikers." "I'm family. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "The difference is that I chose it. Just like you're choosing to be here. Just like you're choosing to let us help. Everything good in life is a choice. Remember that." And the girl looked at him with something that might have been skepticism and might have been hope. "My grandma used to say something like that. Smart woman. She was the best." And Tyler felt something pass between them. Recognition. Understanding. The beginning of something that could matter. "What's your name?" "Emma." "Welcome home, Emma. Let's get you something to eat." The shelter grew. 1 location became 2. 2 became 5. Word spread about the biker who took in runaways, who asked nothing in return, who had turned his own survival into a mission to help others survive. And Tyler found his purpose, not in revenge, not in violence, not in becoming the thing he had escaped, but in breaking the cycle, in showing kids like Emma that the world contained more than pain, that family was possible, that hope was possible, that everything could change in a single moment of courage. And Vex watched it all. Watched Tyler become something remarkable. Watched the kid who had walked into a bar become a man who was building something that mattered. "You did good," Stitch said one night, standing beside Vex as they watched Tyler work with a group of new arrivals. With him, with everything. "I didn't do anything, he did it all himself." "You gave him a chance, that's not nothing." "It was the least I could do, after what he gave me." "What did he give you?" And Vex was quiet for a moment. "Hope. He gave me hope. The belief that not everything is broken, that some things can be saved, that the future might be better than the past." "And is it? Better?" And Vex looked at Tyler, at this man who had changed everything, who had reminded him why the club existed, why family mattered, why honor was worth preserving. "Yeah," he said, "it's better. Not perfect, never perfect, but better. And better is enough." On the 10th anniversary of the night Tyler walked into the Blackstone Saloon, the club gathered for a ceremony that had been a decade in the making. Tyler stood in the chapel, surrounded by the people who had become his family, wearing the ring that had started everything, feeling the weight of a moment he had been moving toward his whole life. "You don't have to do this," Beck said. "You're already family. The patch doesn't change that." "I know, but I want to. I want to make it official. I want to be part of what you built, not just a beneficiary, a participant." And Vex nodded, because he understood. Because sometimes symbols mattered, because making a commitment public was different from making it private. "Then let's do this right." The ceremony was old, older than any of them. Words that had been spoken by generations of members, promises made in leather and blood, oaths that couldn't be broken. And Tyler spoke them with a steady voice and a full heart. "I pledge my loyalty to this club, to my brothers and sisters, to the code that binds us. I will honor the road. I will protect the family. I will carry the legacy forward, from this day until my last day." And Vex placed the patch on Tyler's cut, the symbol of belonging, the mark of acceptance. "Welcome home, brother." And Tyler felt something settle into place, something that had been searching for a home his entire life. He was part of something, not just protected by it, part of it, responsible for it, committed to it, and that felt exactly right. Later that night, Tyler stood alone outside the clubhouse, looking up at stars that had witnessed everything. The fear, the hope, the pain, the healing. And he thought about his grandmother, about her lessons, about her love, about the woman who had taught him that doing the right thing mattered, even when it was hard. "I did it, Grandma," he whispered. "I found my place. I found my family. I found a way to make it mean something." And the wind stirred, and Tyler could have sworn he heard her voice, distant and warm, saying the words she had always said. "I always knew you would." And he smiled, and went back inside, and joined his family. The story of Tyler Brooks could end there, with happiness, with purpose, with a future full of possibility. But stories don't really end. They just transform into other stories. And Tyler's story was transforming even as he lived it, because the shelter network grew, and the impact spread, and word reached people who had been forgotten by everyone else. And one day a boy walked through the door of the Phoenix shelter, 12 years old, bruises on his face, fear in his eyes, a ring clutched in his shaking hand. "I found this," the boy said, "on the road. It doesn't belong to me. I wanted to return it." And Tyler looked at that ring, and looked at that boy, and felt the universe folding in on itself, creating echoes and patterns and meanings that couldn't be coincidence. "What's your name?" "Daniel." "Danny." And Tyler smiled, a smile that came from somewhere deep, somewhere old, somewhere that understood that some things weren't accidents. "Welcome, Danny. You're safe here. And that ring? I think you're exactly the person who's supposed to have it. Because that's how the cycle worked. Not circles, not repetitions, but spirals. Each turn higher than the last. Each generation carrying the lessons forward. Each moment of courage creating space for the next. Tyler had been saved by people who chose to care. Now he was saving others. And one day, those others would save someone else. And the chain would continue. Forever. Because that's what family means. Not blood, not obligation, not accident. Choice. The choice to see someone's worth. The choice to protect someone's future. The choice to believe that doing the right thing matters, even when the world makes it hard. Tyler looked at Danny, at this boy who reminded him of everything he had been, everything he had overcome, everything he had become. And he made the same choice Vex had made, the same choice his grandmother had made, the same choice that every person who had ever loved him had made. He chose to believe. And belief, as Tyler had learned, was the most powerful force in the universe. More powerful than fear, more powerful than pain, more powerful than all the darkness that tried to swallow the light. Because belief created possibility, and possibility created change. And change, one person at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time, could transform the world. Tyler Brooks had walked into a bar with nothing but a ring and a desperate hope that doing the right thing might matter. And it had. It had changed everything. It had saved his life. It had given him a family. It had created a legacy that would outlast him. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.